question. Okay, what is Sean talking about here? I'm talking about, you know, the water being possibly mentioned 4 times in the poem. You've got begin at where warm waters halt. You've got put in, which a lot of people refer to as, you know, a disembark or put into port, you know, from water. Then you've got no paddle up your creek, and then obviously you have water high. So we've got 4 mentions in the poem, so obviously we all believe that water has something to do with, you know, our course from beginning it to ending it. So it's March 2nd, 2018, and, you know, a lot of people are starting to gear up for the early search season and getting out there in the southern part of the Rockies where, you know, this year we all know the snowfall hasn't been that great in the southern part of the search area. So I kind of just want to get into talking about this because, you know, it's obvious that Forrest Fenn has not ruled out, you know, water. You know, even given the opportunities to do so. Let me give an example. In June 19th of 2017, which I think was right after Paris had passed, you know, and might have been just before we lost Eric Ashby. And on Mysterious Writings, there was a question posed on June 19th of 2017 there was something along the effects, and I paraphrase, you know, Forrest, me and my family are getting prepared to go out and hunting, but we've got some concerns. And Forrest responded, you know, your question is very timely, and you can go look for this for yourself, but he gives a lot of examples of things, you know, you can do or things to take with you, like a GPS, good boots, and those types of things. But then he goes into, you know, waders. He starts talking about waders and going into the water, and, you know, he describes the best type of waders. You know, it's good to have the chest high so that if you fall over in the water, it doesn't fill up, which is, to me, kind of a direct reference to Randy. And then he also talks about, you know, non-slip, you know, boot types where, you know, if you have felt on the bottom, you know, that to have those types. You know, and obviously this is coming from a man who's spent, you know, a lifetime, you know, fishing in rivers and lakes, so he's very experienced in doing this. But at the end, you know, immediately after talking about the waders, he says, you know, you're not going to have to move any large rocks, or you won't have to cross any steep precipices. But he totally misses the opportunity to tell us to keep our boots out of the water. Why is that? You know, the only conclusion that I can come up with is, of course, the man is concerned. He doesn't want to see anybody else lose their lives. So my only conclusion is because he didn't say anything about not crossing the water, is that, man, is there a potential of water crossing involved? Now, I know what you're thinking right now, and a lot of people will hit me up on, and I would agree with them questioning this, is, you know, Forrest has constantly said, don't go where a 79 or 80-year-old man couldn't go. But we're not talking about a typical 79 or 80-year-old man now, are we? We are talking about Forrest Fenn. We are talking about the Maverick himself. We are talking about a man who has spent his entire life, you know, in rivers and lakes and fishing. So, you know, was a 79 or 80-year-old Forrest Fenn capable of crossing, you know, a river or stream carrying 20 pounds, you know, twice, you know, back and forth? I guess you could call it 4. But it's something to question, and it's got to make you question why he hasn't ruled it out. Obviously, it would, you know, being my own devil's advocate here, you know, obviously it's almost too much of a clue for him to rule it out. You know, even in the guise of safety. You know, it just has me questioning that. And of course, you know, while there's more than one way to skin a cat, there's always more than one way to get to any point, you know, on a map. You know, whether the most direct being that you've got to cross a river, or the most indirect that causes you to do a 4 or 5 mile hike to get to the spot. And he's always, he's constantly said, or he has said when he was posed, with the question that, he walked less than a few miles. Was that less than a few miles total? I would believe it is. So, if you're considering that, then you're looking at, no more than 3/4 of a mile from where he parked his car to the spot. So, 3/4 miles of there, another 3/4 miles back to the car for the first trip, which is 1.5 miles. And then if you repeat that, you come somewhat less than a few miles. But that could be all the way up to just less than 4, all the way down to just a couple hundred yards, from his parking spot. So we can go on and on about that debate. But again, more than one way to skin a cat. You could take the longer route to get to the spot, which would be safer, or you can take the most direct route, which could possibly have you crossing a waterway. Just something to think about, and why he hasn't, ruled out waterways, especially with the upcoming search season. Now, one thing that's also curious is he has said, I think it was in Periodic Words, and again, I'm quoting this all from memory, so please don't crucify me if I get it wrong. You're more than willing to in the comments section if you want to correct me, but please don't crucify me. I think it was in June 2017 in the Periodic Words, he comes out and says, to answer some questions and to prevent others from being asked, I did follow the clues in the poem when I hid the treasure, but I hid the treasure before the poem was complete. Now, what I'm taking out of that, and I could go into a whole nother tirade on that quote, but what I'm taking out of that is he said, I did follow the clues in the poem when I hid the treasure chest. Now, I could get into the completely two different definitions of follow, but let's look at it, follow in the literal sense of a, step by step, you're following the directions precisely. So if he, followed the directions when hiding the treasure chest, that means that the path that he took from where he parked his car to where he physically hid the treasure would have been part of those same clues that he wrote in the poem. So if in fact, we are crossing a waterway, in the poem, or, the words are, having us cross that waterway, then he too must have, if he, like he says, followed the clues when he hid the treasure chest. There's a totally different meaning to follow in there, which is more in the figurative sense, as in understood or comprehended. I could do a whole different thing on that, but right now I'm talking about trying to understand whether or not we have to cross a waterway or not. Kind of lose my train of thought here. Give me a second to pick it back up. So, getting back to the point, my question would be to Forrest, and I think all of our questions would be to Forrest, in the guise of being safe, is to ask Forrest, in the act of hiding the treasure, did you cross a waterway, in between where you parked your car and where you hid the treasure? Now, sure, we could ask him, did you have to cross a waterway? Well, if you ask him that, we know how Finn's going to answer. He's going to turn around and say, well, no, I didn't have to. I chose to because it was the most direct route. But no, I could have walked the extra 4 or 5 miles to go this way. But, carrying 40 pounds or trying to do that 2 times in one afternoon would be nearly impossible, even for somebody who's in pretty good shape. So, the answer to that question, if you posed it as, did you have to, would, his obvious answer would be no, and then you'd be sitting there trying to figure out what he really meant. So you have to ask the question a more direct way, as in, Forrest, did you cross a waterway in the act of hiding the treasure from where you parked your car to where the treasure was hidden? It's just all on how you ask the question. Again, of course, I don't think he would answer the question because it's probably more of a clue than he wants to give away, even though we all understand we're trying to keep ourselves out of the water and reflect on the hindsight of losing 3, possibly 4 searchers due to failed water navigation. So, and one thing that I look at, and I'm not much. I mean, if you know me, I'm not much into the hints, you know, or trying to figure out what the hints are. But one thing that you know I've thought of lately is when you look at the cover of Too Far to Walk, you know, it's got a picture of Forrest, or what? Not a picture of Forrest, his shadow that he admittedly admits to, you know, photoshopping in the photo of him, of his shadow overlying the Madison River, you know, the picture that Dow took for him. And, you know, it looks like he's holding a walking stick, but I've never seen Forrest with a walking stick. I mean, I've seen all kinds of videos of him, the ones him out at his San Lorenzo Pueblo with Jennifer London and, you know, Suzanne Summers and all those that I've never seen him with a walking stick. Has anybody else? So what is that implying? You know, what does that imply? Does that imply that, you know, if you look into how to safely cross a waterway, one of the key things that most of those safety things tell you is, you know, have some kind of walking stick, you know, to use one of those walking poles. So I don't know, is that saying something? I don't know. Again, I don't read too much into the hints, but did other people look into that? Did Randy? Did Paris? Did you know, Eric or even Mike? Did they look into that and think that, heck, maybe that's a hint to that? I don't know. They're not here to answer that question. So I've rambled on quite a bit here. Again, you know, we've got spring coming up. You know, some of you that search in southern Colorado and northern New Mexico, you know, the weather has been beautiful. There hasn't been much snowfall. It's definitely opened up to, you know, to elevations. If you're going to be out there, be safe. You know, plan your routes. If you don't have to cross the water and you can find a different route, do it. That's my advice. Sorry, my thing keeps moving here. So stay out of the water. That's my best advice. But the question is, and I'd like to have answered, you know, is, Forrest, did you, in between where you parked your car and where you hid the treasure, did you cross a waterway? You know, and let's just get that out of the way. Let's answer that question and get it out of the way.